What have you got?
Thank you, Joe. We've received apologies from councillors Akhtar, Bigham, Cooner, O'Nyans and Webb.
Any further? Councillor thank you. I believe Councillor Millward can't be here physically and sends in apologies. And I've got to leave at 2:30, Chair.
And I think she probably is on screen there by the looks of it.
Yeah, she is. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further? Any item 2? Any declarations of interest? Item 3. Chair's remarks. Well, we will be discussing this later in the meeting, but we don't actually know quite what's going to happen under the government's review. So we might be still here as TDC or something else, or we don't know yet. And that won't be decided until the new municipal year by the Combined Authority. In my own circumstance, I'm not at all sure I'll be back on the TDC, and I'd be surprised to come back as chair, even if I come back. So for me, it's a kind of goodbye, really. And I'd like to thank everybody who's made my life well, easier and sometimes difficult, especially the ones that made it easier, and all of the officers. So thank you for what you do and what you do, members. So that's that. The other thing is, as you know, I'm off to Canada to see my brother who's not well. So Councillor Locke will be chairing, or if there's a call for chairing things, Mary will deputise. It is our last scheduled TDC meeting, and of course none of us knows whether we will get back on the TDC if it exists anyway. So I do know that Councillor Sim knows that she won't be there, so I'd like to thank you for your contribution. I'm so sorry that you won't be coming back, but there you go. Thank you so much. Councillor Locke.
I'd just like to say thank you, Richard, for all that you've done over the years, and I know that a lot of people will miss you. And well, we haven't got a crystal ball, but let's hope the committee will continue. And good luck to those standing the elections.
Well, go on.
Thank you, Richard. I just wanted to say thank you very much for your time as chair of the committee, and particularly always being very fair. You've always given everyone a chance to have their voice. So thank you.
Yes, appreciated. Okay. So, Pete, you are going to raise the transport governance review. Where are we going to do that? Sorry, Dan. It gave him a heart attack.
Well, Pete catches his breath. Now, I just to sort of on the back of what you said, Chair, is a little bit more information on at least the process of the governance review, if not the detail of it itself, which will come later. But there is yourself and Councillor Locke met with Councillor Kathy Baton, who members may know chairs overview the scrutiny committee, and has also taken a keen interest in the transport governance review. And you had an initial meeting last week about that. Just to update you on, or other members on what was agreed at that meeting, is that there's going to be an informal, so that means it could be hybrid and be in a room or on the screen if you wish, a joint meeting of overview and scrutiny committee and this committee, scheduled for, unfortunately it's Friday the 21st of April at 10 AM, where governance officers, who are leading the administration of the governance review, will come along to present proposals. So there will be detail where you haven't had that detail before, and I think that will be really useful. And to take soundings in an informal sense. So it's not a public meeting, but I know the director is very keen to hear both this committee's view and the scrutiny committee's view. So there's going to be a meeting invite that will be sent out either today or tomorrow to all members of both committees for the 21st of April at 10 a.m. Where those first proposals will be presented to you and to take your views as to what you think of them. Obviously, always working on the basis. The intention is to bring a formal report to the Combined Authorities AGM, which is the second week of June, for actual formal board approval. So it's to give members an opportunity to input whilst they're still in the draft stage. But I think the benefit of that meeting, there will be more detail than you've previously had, so you can actually start to see the detail of the review. So hopefully, as many members can attend that meeting.
Is any queries on that? Okay, thanks very much. So we move on to. Sorry, Tim.
I think you were going to invite me to make a few comments.
Oh, I'm always happy to hear what you say.
Well, first of all, on behalf of the Conservative Group, we would like to thank you for, as Council Ordinance, the very fair and very impartial manner that you have chaired these meetings. It's been a real pleasure working with you, and
Listen, I'm in enough trouble as it is.
I know. But hey, I speak how I find. So thank you very much for that. You wanted me to make a comment about a proposed high-speed 2 visit to Curzon Street, as discussed at the last Rail and Metro Meg. And just to say that officers from the Rail and Metro Meg will be working with high-speed 2 to offer a site visit to all members. I've asked for it not to happen before May the 4th to try and maximise attendance from members. I know in Birmingham that things are slightly different in terms of the elections, but anyway, so as long as members are all happy, I will now seek a date where we can actually visit and actually see the work going on in terms of not only the High Speed 2 station, but also the land that has been safeguarded for the metro to run underneath the High Speed 2 station, which will link Birmingham city centre with Digbeth. And as I said, that will be an all members visit, not all members of the Rail Meg, all members of the TDC. And the other thing you asked me to make a comment on was the email received regarding the Birmingham, Stratford, Honeybourne, Worcester / Oxford proposal, as in which was a bid that the West Midlands Rail Executive was happy to give its support to via a letter to DfT in terms of restoring that link between Stratford and Worcester / Oxford via Honeybourne. While it was successful to get into outline business case, it wasn't successful in going forward to the full strategic business case. But it had a lot of support from local politicians, as well as train operating companies, etc. And we will keep an eye on that one from a Rail and Meg perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
So minutes. First of all, are there any matters of accuracy? Yes, Councillor Grinson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, page 2, minute number 58 at 68B, it reads bus service numbers 8/9. That should read A9, not 8.
Okay. Any other items of accuracy or lack of? So can I move that as a true and accurate record subject to that amendment, please? Yeah. Okay. So, members, do you have any matters arising? Please show if you do. Councillor Hyatt.
I'd like to bring members' attention, Chair, to page 5. Where it says Councillor Carol Hyatt inquired whether it would be possible for future monitoring reports to include a specific red, amber, green evaluation in respect of the project's budget. And the Director of Strategic Partnership and Delivery Integration indicated that whilst the currently reported red, amber, green rating included an assessment of the project's financial position, it was looking to improve for the usefulness of the information presented to the committee. Now that's in respect of financial reports. And I'd like members to note that as far as I can see, I can't see any indication of that in the financial reports that we've received to look through for this meeting today. So I'd like to be noted that, you know, please can this be highlighted for future reports, because I can't see where it is in what's been presented before us today.
Thank you. Kate?
Thank you. I think because obviously that is Sandeep, and Sandeep was talking, I believe, about the performance monitoring report, which isn't on the agenda today on there. So we have committed to looking at reporting and for the next municipal year going forward within there, but we at that point in there. But what I will draw your attention to, there is a further transport capital pressures report that is going forward to board on Friday, which talks around the pressures around the capital programme and updates on the report that previously went to the December board in there. So there is information on that.
Anything further? Timothy, sorry, it's my new spectacles. I can't see a thing. That's better.
Perhaps you should have gone to insert optician as appropriate. No, on a serious matter, there are 11 outstanding matters on the action tracker. I believe that some of them we could possibly comment back on, because, for example, just to pick one at random, looking at John Hayes, item 5, we now know why Diamond Bus is not participating in the government's £2 maximum single bus fare. I don't want to spend the committee's time going through each of the 11, you'd be pleased to know, but could I ask for your good offices, Chair, that we do get responses regarding all 11 outstanding items. Thank you.
Pete, have you got any comments on
that? Yeah, I think just to concur, I mean, some of these have been in flight, some of them have actually happened or thereabouts. So I think we just need to review the comments around these and update them, and maybe just as a matter of course following this meeting, get an update around to all members on the status against all of them, because they're some can be closed out as of now.
Thank you.
Thank you for raising that. Councillor Stanley.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I could just raise the point on 6, where we undertake another site visit to Dudley to the interchange there. It'd be very, very useful. And last time I thank the members that turned up, including your good self. And, you know, the more you get involved with what's taking place up there, the better. So I just hope that we can arrange another visit when the work starts. Thank you.
Yes, it's. I think it's on May the 5th, the next visit.
That's fine with me, Mr. Chairman.
May the 5th.
Yeah. It's on a Friday.
Yeah, I do know that.
Yeah, well, okay, anything further on action tracker matters arising? Thanks, everybody. Board plan. I'm supposed to introduce this. I hereby introduce this. Is there anything anybody wants to raise, whether officer or gentlewoman? No? Yes.
Only to say, Chair, obviously that the forward plan is drafted in a spirit of the continuation of the committee, which so I just caveat the governance review. But if there are any changes to the role or remit of this committee, obviously we will factor that into next year's forward plan. But at the moment, it envisages the committee continuing in the same form that it has at the moment.
Okay. Item 7, new station study. Where's Peter?
I'm here.
Oh, sorry, yes. Yeah. Who's introducing this? Is it?
I am introducing it, Chair, as the lead
Oh, of
member.
course, yes. I forgot.
No, no problem, thank you. As members will be aware, we are currently in the West Midlands constructing 5 new stations, following on from the upgrades that have happened or are continuing to happen at Perry Bar and University Station. And the 5 new stations are Pineapple Road, Kings Heath, Maisley Village, Darlaston and Willenhall, as shown in green on the map on page 18. However, we are very ambitious in the West Midlands, and we commissioned a study to look at where there could be a business case for further new railway stations along the network. A number of stations were looked at across the West Midlands, and a short list was drawn up of 4 that we definitely would like to proceed, plus 1. So the 4 as detailed in the report. 2 in Birmingham and 2 in Coventry, with 1 further as well. Now, just to caveat, this doesn't mean that these new stations are going to happen. It just means that there's going to be further work done, as they are the most likely to happen. The study, as I point out, was done by Mott MacDonald. This has been not only within the West Midlands, but also with Shire authorities surrounding the West Midlands. So, as I say, the 2 in Birmingham are Borsall Heath and Castle Bromwich. Now, just to caveat, Castle Bromwich, as we all know, is in Solihull, but the station is technically within Birmingham, within Castle Vale Ward, and 2 in Coventry, what we're calling Coventry East and Fays Hill. The 5th station, which we would like to look at, is Tettenhall. As I said, Tettenhall falls within the medium case for further work territory, but is more deliverable than any of the other stations in the medium case, which is why it's been included for further development. And again, that we will need to look at that in conjunction with Staffordshire County Council. Peter will supply any further details that I've missed out. Just finally to say that the strong case for further work, and the 4 that I've referenced, Coventry East, which is in the Binley Willenhall area, Borsall Heath, Fays Hill, Castle Bromwich. Some of them are dependent on the delivery of the Midlands Rail Hub. Others are dependent on, for example, post HS2 released capacity. So this is why I'm very keen to stress that they won't definitely go ahead, but there is a really strong case for further work to see if they can actually go ahead. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Officers, is it you, Peter?
Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Tuxwell. I think you've basically taken all the words out I was going to say on this, but a very good overview there. I think a couple of further things just to note. In terms of the next steps, we are commissioning more work on the stations that we've identified as having the strongest case, because the intention is to seek funding from the CRSTS capital funding to do further development work. And we're at the early stages of pulling together all the information we need on the 5 new stations that we've identified, to do a bit more work on the wider transport case there for those stations, so that we can have all the evidence we need to submit a programme business case into the single assurance framework in due course. And we're just commissioning that extra piece of work as we speak. We should have a proposal from Mark MacDonald later on this week at the timescales and costs for doing that extra bit of work we just need. So yeah, this is the start of a process in terms of going forwards. And it's not to say that we don't, the stations we've identified as having a lower priority, doesn't mean to say we don't want to do those stations. We just want to focus our efforts on the stations that we think have the strongest case at this stage and are most likely to be successful in terms of having a business case that stands up and will be successful in the future about attracting funding for taking them forwards. So this is an early stage piece of work. You will have picked up undoubtedly that we sent out a press release on the 28th of February supporting this, which was successful in getting quite a lot of press coverage. And certainly my inbox since we released that, it has been growing and growing. And so we're responding to quite a few comments and questions about these new stations, which is clearly something that's attracted people's attention. And just the other thing to note was, again, also in the report, is that TFWM and WMRE, we've been asked formally by Wolverhampton, Staffordshire County Council and South Staffordshire County Council to look in a bit more detail about Brinsford Station, which is a station in, say, just over the border of Wolverhampton in South Staffs, around a very large new development in the Brinsford area. An SOBC had previously been undertaken by Staffordshire County Council for that, but they've asked us to bring that station into our list of further work going forwards as well. So we look to include that as part of the assessment process going forward, because it has a big benefits for Wolverhampton as well. But subject to those comments, I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor, your hand is up.
Thank you. Peter, just a quick question. Is it possible I can sort of have a quick chat with you in regards to the Borstal Heath train station? It needs, I can give you some more evidence to make the case stronger, if that's the case. Thank you.
Yes, very happy to do that.
Okay, anything further, members? I just like to refer to the proposal for Brownells and Pelsall. I know it's low on the list, but this will be music. The only problem is that I'm afraid the MP for Aldridge Brownells is only enthusiastic about Aldridge Station and doesn't want to have anything to do with Pelsall or Brownells, in my opinion. Councillor Alden.
Thank you. Just to thank all the officers for all the work they've been doing on this. Obviously, there's a long way to go yet, as it shows in the construction as well. These are under investigation rather than secured at this point. But clearly, the expansion of the train network across the region is vital if we're going to get people using public transport. And I particularly welcome the proposals around Castle Bromwich, which obviously people know I've mentioned on here many a time. And clearly, if we can try and long-term get that whole Tamworth line through to the Sutton Park line developed, that's going to be really good for public transport in North Birmingham. Thank you.
Sorry. Yes, Councillor Hyde.
This may have been mentioned to us from Sarah, but do I need to flag up that Technol Station is absolutely nowhere near Technol? And the only naming should take place to better reflect the connotation that it will serve.
Absolutely noted, and I think there's a case for renaming a lot of these stations. These are purely indicative names.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Joe. Just to take some of those comments in order, if I can, in terms of summing up as lead member. All I would say to Councillor Hyatt, I think, is that we worked on the original premise on the Campbell line that the Hazelwell station would be called Hazelwell, but after a public vote, it was agreed to rename it to Pineapple Road. So that there's always that type of opportunity, and I know that Councillor Locke has been fully engaged in that consultation process as to what that new station should actually be called. So thank you very much, Councillor Locke. In terms of Castle Bromwich, potentially, as I understand it, and Peter will correct me if I'm wrong, it's already served, the line is already served by cross country. So theoretically, you could build the station and get cross country to actually stop at Castle Bromwich station, which is in Castle Vale, along the line as a short-term interim measure. And that is one of the things that are going to be fully investigated as part of this new Mott MacDonald study in terms of taking it forward. And I understand your comments about Brown Hills and Pelsall, Councillor Worrell. I think the main issue at the moment is that, like with the some of the other railway lines identified in this, the railway line isn't actually working at the moment, and the rail line would need to be reinstated first before we actually could build the stations. But I think it's a good start to identify the stations that we want to build to make the West Midlands rail network a full, much better network for all of our residents. Thank you.
Well said. Anything further? Oh yes, sorry, Councillor.
Just like to add, thank you for those comments, Councillor Huxtable, about the Pineapple Road. I was there about a fortnight ago with the Deputy Leader, Birmingham City Council, and the Mayor, the Lumphammer, and the Deputy Leader and myself had pineapples. So we looked like a cocktail bar, really, all in our day glow as well. So it was fantastic.
So
it's a very topical issue.
Oh yes.
For nothing, so let's note on the day. Thanks, everybody. Financial monitoring update. Well, Councillor Akala, it's available to introduce it. So, Kate, would you please?
Hello. Yeah, of course, and apologies for not being able to be in the room with you today on there. So the report that has come to the committee today is the financial monitoring report, reporting the income and expenditure up to the 31st of January 2023. So the year-to-date revenue position is showing a favourable variance of £2.7 million to budget, with the key variances being, as reported, largely through the majority of the financial year so far. So savings through the concessions budget due to lower patronage, and also lower spend across a number of expenditure categories that's coming through. We have completed the final forecast exercise now for the 22-23 financial year, and that is showing a surplus of 0.4 million on the transport position, which is an improvement against the previous position of 0.4. Within that position, we have made some provisions in there of 2.9 million, which are to provide resilience against future capital pressures and also support for hosting future transport events. Overall, the year-to-date capital expenditure to the end of January is 225 million, which is 112 million behind the year-to-date budget. The key variances, as through the rest of the year, are still within the investment programme, largely within the metro programmes of Wensley, Brierley Hill and B, and also within rail packages 1 and 2 in there due to rephasing of construction activity. Commonwealth Games programme, it goes as through the year, includes all the schemes that were due to be completed in advance of the Games. The main driver at the moment of that is around Perry Bar, which is 4.2 million behind budget, just due to the timing of the contract to close out expenditure. Sprint schemes are also behind budget by 4.1 in total, due to ongoing review of payments from contractors. Other major works is 14.6 adverse to the year-to-date budget, largely due to the Coventry Electric Bus City project and the Cross City Bus Dudley to Druids Heath. The CRSTS full-year forecast is now showing a £30 million variance to budget, and that is following a rebase exercise that has been done with all project sponsors across both LA and WRMCA schemes to reflect the most up-to-date information around delivery of schemes. Grants to local authority programmes is 16.9 million under budget due to the Active Travel Fund 3 and local authorities are progressing the work in this area to ensure that the funding has been committed by the 31st of March in line with the funding conditions and the grant conditions laid down by Active Travel England. And that's my introduction. Happy to take any questions that may arise from members around the report.
I'd like to ask about the overspend with the metro extension in Wolverhampton. I would love to have seen some detail about what's happening in Wolverhampton and what happened with the budget, because it's a lessons learned, because an overspend has taken place and the work is still not completed. I think I'm perhaps particularly concerned because this is a project that's been managed by Transport for West Midlands, I believe. But Wolverhampton Council are getting an awful lot of negative response from residents as a result. So there is a need, I think, to ensure that it can't happen again. And it isn't in this report.
It isn't in this report because there is an investigation that is taking place at the moment that is looking at how that came to be. That has, I believe, an update was given verbally by Mark Smith, the chair of ARAC, to the last Combined Authority board for that. And once that investigation has been completed, it will be reported through to WMCA board, but as a private item, I believe, in there. So that work is underway, and I'm certainly sure we can make sure that there is something through to this committee when that investigation is complete.
Yeah, and thanks further to Kate's update there around the sort of strategic updates around this. I think it's also worthwhile saying there were some points made about lessons learned, and it may be so from points of those that are considered. Once we have that fuller picture, there may be elements of that we should be looking to see whether we can share more widely around different partner engagements and approaches taken within that as well. So I think there's the financial element. There is also the point you made there around lessons learned, around what lessons learned can we A, take from, but B, share as well more item. So that is a matter that we can and will fully consider at the point when we can divulge it. So if I can also take that away.
Can I ask, will it come to the Meg, Rail and Metro group? And if it does, could I be invited to attend as a representative of Wolverhampton?
So I think just in terms of what's from a lessons learned perspective, I think there's as I say, I know Kate highlighted there that there is a legal process underway. I think what we need to do is take away your question and disaggregate what's the legal framework in terms of what can be shared more publicly. What's the lessons learned and the overarching things that we can bring, and we will aim to make sure that the latter is something that we can bring through that group and invite you to. So yes, it is what we will aim to do. I will take away a separate conversation with the teams around that to see how we manage that process to stay legal and above board as well.
Councillor Oxton, it's on this point, isn't it?
It is on this point.
Then I'll
Yes,
say
thank
you, Councillor Stanley.
Thank you very much. Just to help Pete, because we didn't get through all the business of the last Rail and Metro Meg, we've scheduled an additional meeting for Thursday, the 30th of March at 2 o'clock. If you can get a briefing note to that and to let Lucy Wootton know, as she's the new lead member. So she's the new officer leading on the Meg to replace Tom. I would be very happy to take that item and for Councillor Hyatt to be invited to that meeting.
And thank you, Councillor. Noted. I don't think what I'll still take that away as a question as to whether we can meet that timescale given the points highlighted by Kate, but absolutely noted, and we'll take that away. Thank you.
Just before I bring Councillor Stanley in, is there any indication about how long this process might take?
Say it's been done. The chair of ARAC is leading it as an independent investigation, and it's been done by an external firm. So I'm not cited on the timelines for that, but it is Mark Smith that is leading that from a Combined Authority.
Can I just check, Chair, when you can I just check, Chair, when you say the process, do you mean the process actually to assess all of this, or the process to over the line?
Oh, the process to assess and
Okay,
have an outcome and obviously lessons learned. But in other words, it is the consultants we're talking about.
yeah, we'll take that.
Or perhaps we could have an indication in time for the Meg.
An update.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll refer to page 31 and offensive 2. The Metro Wednesbury to Bridal extension. Now that the funding is secure from Wednesbury to Dudley, I wonder what the current situation was from Dudley to Bridal Hill.
So councillor, in relation to that, there is a report, I believe, until the June Combined Authority Board, which will update on the position around the Wednesday to Bridal Hill, the full extension metro piece in there.
Yeah, fine. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so this report is for noting, isn't it? So yeah, as per page 25. Do we agree those recommendations? Okay. So the one you've all been waiting for, enhanced partnership scheme.
Chair, I'll take this one if I may.
You're sitting comfortably.
And selfish.
Well, I'll protect him to start with. So hopefully everybody's had sight of the paper that was circulated. There's 3 recommendations on the paper. I'll take the last one first. It's probably the one that needs a little bit of dialogue. So I think you'd probably all be aware that we would have hoped by today to be saying that we've reached an agreement in principle with local bus operators to proceed with the enhanced partnership scheme. Unfortunately, we're not in a position to be able to do that, and therefore seek TDC to approve the making of the scheme. And we are therefore bringing forward a recommendation to seek approval to have delegated authority to the WMCA head of governance to be able to make that scheme, on the basis that we remain hopeful that we will be able to seek a resolution, and if we can, then we'll need to make that scheme before Transport Delivery Committee meets again. I'll just say to members, obviously this is a responsibility that is delegated to the TDC by the Combined Authority to make the scheme and oversee the governance of the enhanced partnership. We are continuing the dialogue and the discussion with our local bus operators to try and seek that resolution. There is a further operator meeting being held today, and we are hopeful that they will come back tomorrow and produce an alternative proposal to us, which would then mean that we amend the EP as written and take that to a formal vote on Wednesday. Discussions and dialogue has been constructive. It is difficult on the basis that we are pushing the envelope of what's possible through partnership, clearly seeking to benefit passengers as best we can. And like I say, we do remain hopeful they'll come back with a constructive proposal that then we can seek to move forward. If it doesn't, then clearly we have got some other regulatory options potentially open and available to us, which we will and are looking at and exploring in more detail. And we will set reports to TDC on how we are progressing with that as and when we commence that work. The other 2 recommendations that we are asking you to approve is to note the revocation of the Solihull and Wolverhampton Advanced Quality Partnership Schemes. That has now happened. But just to reassure all members that whilst we've revoked those, the requirements that are placed on operators, local authorities and ourselves that are in them are included within the EP variation 2, so the existing scheme. They are firmed up in variation 3, but there is sufficient in variation 2 to allow us to revoke them and move forward with them. And also to note that as of last Sunday, the Combined Authority through TFWM adopted bus service registration powers from the Traffic Commissioner. So we are now the registration authority for the region, the first city region and only the second region in England to do that. So very much leading the way again. New powers that are available to us. I'll pause there, Chair, and take any questions.
Any questions? Councillor Hyatt.
Right, this illustrates my ignorance. What's the consequences of Wolverhampton no longer being part of the advanced partnership schemes?
So in this case, Councillor, there isn't any because we've wrapped up.
I thought I can't see any consequences to this. I'm
No,
so
so
pleased you
we-
said that.
So there would have been, but because the requirements within the AQPS are effectively replicated within the EP and other statutory requirements, there is no fundamental difference.
That's great. Thank you. That's what I thought.
Any more members? So as I understand it, then we need to amend the recommendation 3, as you said, to delegate authority for decision to the head of governance. Is that correct?
It's as written, so we amended it because 2 weeks ago it became clear we weren't going to get there. So we approved that you extend the making of the scheme to WMCA head of governance.
Are those recommendations agreed? Dan?
Yeah, sorry, Chair, just as it is a formal decision of the committee, can I just suggest that rather than head of governance, I think it's director of law and governance is who you're delegating to. So I'll reflect that in the minutes if that's committee's mission.
Committee, happy with that? Yeah, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Apologies, I just want to interrupt. The invitation for the joint meeting on the 21st has just been emailed to me.
Wow, very good. Thank you. Item 10.
So Chair, he's in the building and he's on his way down. So
Shall we jump to the next one?
yeah, perhaps if
Move to jump to item 11, Chair.
Can we do 11?
I can't. So that's so it's Adam Holland who's joining us on Team. So again, if you bear with me,
Chair, I could do your item
So
12.
perhaps- Keith, who's in the room.
That's on 12.
Yes, yes.
Right.
So sorry, Mike Lanson is on his way. So perhaps Peter, if you do your item and then he'll join us in a couple of minutes.
Thank you. Okay, so for agenda item 12, this is just a short verbal update on bus recovery funding. Key and critical update is around the latest additional funding round that has been confirmed since the last Transport Delivery Committee for the period March to June, which I think provided an overall round update to members associated with that. So we now have what is known as bus recovery grant funding in place for April, May and June from government. And again, that is being devolved to the Combined Authority and Transport for West Midlands to manage that with bus operators in terms of paying from ourselves to operators for maintaining bus services as well across the region. We are also in conversations and seeking to continue conversations with government around ongoing funding from July onwards. It's been a matter of conversation amongst this committee, and certainly we had a conversation at Putting Passengers First member engagement group around this as well. So we have commenced the process of communicating with government around funding arrangements from July onwards. We continue to engage with the bus industry around the positions of their service and service operations across the region, because as we are aware, we are seeing some proposed changes and challenges to the ongoing delivery of bus services within region as well, to be maintained in their current guise. Some of which have been a matter of separate briefings and updates that we've shared with Transport Delivery Committee, particularly around some Black Country services with Diamond Bus, but also we are engaged with National Express and other operators around some of their services too. Furthermore, just on the funding, the region has been engaged in discussions around the trailblazing devolution deal and dialogue there. And one of the elements that Transport for West Midlands have been discussing with government is around bus service operator grant, known as BSOG, and that's what was traditionally the fuel rebate that was given to bus operators, and how that might be managed differently under a devolved arrangement with Combined Authority and Transport for West Midlands as well. So I'll just leave it there as a short overview, and then happy to pick up any questions or comments associated with that, the contents of it. Thank you.
Members, Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a thing that's brought to my attention to the media quite recently about the bus drivers for the National Express going on strike. What arrangements will we make for that actually happening?
Several things. So firstly, we've been working with National Express around mitigation arrangements. So in the event of strike action, what services of theirs will be operating. They have publicised an approach that they were trying to protect certainly certain hospital services and core routes. We've also been working with them and other partners through the Regional Transport Control Centre to ensure we know what the mitigation plan is, including other bus operators as well. So which services will be running and which services would not. I think, just if I may as well, have been obviously been in constant dialogue with National Express. We do know that there are further high-level talks taking place this afternoon, and by late afternoon we should know the outcome of those. And we certainly know from dialogue with National Express, I've spoken to them just prior to this meeting, and they are hopeful that there may be some dialogue and discussion which would mean that it may not result in strike action on Thursday, but we're yet to confirm that. So yes, the communications and arrangements have been going on in place, but we've also been in close dialogue around the ongoing discussions between the employer.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Mr. Chairman, the reason I asked the question, it is causing great concern with people in employment that no other means of getting to work. It will be a severe loss of income from them if they can't get there. That's the reason I raised the question.
And I guess we get to hear as soon as you have an update.
If we get an update on that this afternoon, Chair, we'll make sure that I communicate that further correspondence with them.
Because I just want to point out as well, I think we've all got people who, I know you've got it for key workers, the buses and they've been announced, but also you've got people going to hospital for treatment. I've now got people going for chemotherapy, which is vital, and they live on the route, which the service doesn't, there will be no bus, so not everyone can afford a taxi to work or to hospital appointment.
Chair, thank you. And I should also point out to members, I mean, obviously it's not lost on us as a team or indeed colleagues that we're communicating with on the overall impact if this strike did go ahead on Thursday to the region, to the economy and to the lives of residents right across the region for various different reasons. So for that reason, we are hopeful that the discussions and dialogue that are going on with National Express bear some form of fruit.
Any further observations or questions for Pete? So basically we note what you say. Okay. So do we come to you now, Michael?
Yes,
Yeah, okay, so we're on to item 10, back to item 10.
So thank you. So this is bringing a paper for a CRUS package of renewal works for Metro Line 1. A previous paper approved a release of 2.15 million as an urgent expenditure on some of the equipment on Line 1. And this is asking for the remainder of the 30 million package, so 27.85 million under the CRUS package. And it's to upgrade and renew some of the key equipment on the Line 1 Metro. So we've had an increasing number of failures, particularly on the OLE, but also on the track of the existing line, which is now nearly 25 years old. And some of those repairs are needed now. So this is a package of 30 million. We have been asked, because the CRUS's overall scheme is going back to June board as a complete package. So this paper is going to CA board on Friday this week, but we've been asked to add a limit within this paper, so only to release 8 million of the 30 million now, pending the decisions that may be taken at CA board in June. So the idea is that this paper will proceed from here to CA board, agree the paper in principle for 30 million, but release to restrict the release of funding to 8 million in the short term until the June paper at CA.
June, you say?
Sorry?
June.
So there's a June paper about crusts globally that's reviewing, and therefore, rather than release all of the 30 million, it's been recommended that we release only 8 million for the more urgent work, which will essentially be on the OLE and on the track replacements that we need to do now, where they are starting to get close to, if not on the edge of, safety limits in terms of maintenance.
Overhead line equipment.
So overhead line is the main one. We repaired half of the overhead line under previous funding last year and the year before, and this is the second half of that piece of work. It's about 8 million within the 30 million for that. Happy to go into any more detail of the actual equipment, etc.
Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that just concerned me about this, you've just mentioned after 20 years, you said 25 years, and the amount of track replacement to cost millions of pounds to do, especially in Wolverhampton, Bilston Road area. What is concerning me is, have we got any indication at all when the Metro will actually start showing a profit or at least break even?
Thank you. Yeah, the profitability of the Metro is a moving feast at the moment. So at the current rate, it is not showing a profit, and that is because we've had significant increases in operational costs and a good reduction in the ridership through COVID, which we are now starting to recover. I don't have an exact date to give you an answer, but we are monitoring that on a regular basis, and as the operation moves into profit, that is subsidising the extensions that are coming.
Yeah.
And that's the key element, which is why the Briley Hill project has currently been split into 2 sections.
Other members? Rail and Metro, maybe?
Thank you very much. My understanding is this goes to the combined board, the West Midlands Combined Authority board on Friday. And therefore is more within their purview than with mine. But the long and short of it is, if we don't do it, we can't run the Metro over the tracks, so we can't run the Metro service full stop. So in one sense, it's a no-brainer, because if we want to continue the Metro and have a Metro network in the West Midlands, we need to do the line renewal. Thank you, Chair.
And I would add to that, this section that we need to do the repair work becomes the core of the wider network. So the new extensions that are being built feed through this same section. So we would have made those investments and then had a core section that was not up to handling the traffic.
One further comment, if I can, Chair, sorry. The other thing is that I've asked officers that in terms of the new track that we are currently installing between the city centre and Digbeth, the east side extension, that we make sure that as far as possible we're not in the situation as they were in Edinburgh, that we would have to replace that track before the service ever came into operation. And that's one thing I'm very, very keen to happen, given the delays of where we wanted to be in terms of opening up that because of the High Speed 2 works and the fact, as I mentioned earlier, that that it will run underneath the High Speed 2 station at Curzon Street, and the delays in getting that, in securing that land in order to do that. It's something of a reputational risk, which I'm sure is reflected in the risk register, that we will need to constantly monitor, so that the track currently being laid is the track that the first Metro trams will run along when that section is open. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I'm happy to pick up on that point. There are two elements, I suppose, to track. So just to be clear, the work under this package is to renew the rail rather than the track, where we look at the road next to the rail, which is the problem that I think you're referring to, where there's been damage in Edinburgh. Most of the time that we have that damage, it's where, for various reasons, often planning departments requests, we have been asked not to put a concrete shoulder along the track. The concrete shoulder protects then the tarmac from being damaged. So all of the sections, to answer your question specifically on Digbeth, all of the street sections in the Digbeth east side extension have concrete shoulders on either side of the rail, so we don't anticipate that problem. And we are also making sure that we use the operator team to do maintenance of the track through the period until they enter into operation. So we will be monitoring it and making sure it's in a suitable condition to start operating on.
Thank you, Chair.
Any further questions? So, the recommendations are as set out. Yeah. Vote members, do you approve those? Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you can stay if you like.
I've got another bit, unless there's any other questions.
No.
Right. I would like to stay otherwise, but.
Right.
Yes.
Transport operations update. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you. Right.
I crept it. Make sure to share the screen. Can you hear me okay? Thank you. Good afternoon, councillors. My name's Adam. I'm one of the RTCC duty managers upstairs. My aim is just to give you a quick snapshot at February's performance report and answer any questions that you may have. I know we attended one of these meetings a month or 6 weeks ago. We rag rate all our reports, so just to go through how the network looked on our rag ratings, which cover the peak periods, both AM and PM. A very good month of performance, to be honest. Every single mode averaged over 80% green. A couple of highlights: Metro saw a 96% green rating, which is very high. Obviously, they'll be looking to maintain that as their network expands and more road intersections come into play. We did have some black rag ratings, which is our lowest form of rating. That was rail impacted by that, and that was due to the ongoing industrial action which caused that. I think on the last meeting you had here, it was looking at December's, just due to the timings of our reports and the timings of these meetings. So you won't have seen January statistics. Just for some comparative purposes, February, every single mode saw increased green ratings. Some highlights of that: an 18% on the overall reg ratings, 12% for national highways, and 15% for rail, with the others seeing more minor changes. that's February stats. Looking at March, we may see a dip in performance due to a combination of the adverse weather which we saw last week, which saw some performance issues across the board really, and industrial action which we know is forthcoming. I won't go through all of these, they're all on the report, which I can send out if it's required. But a couple of examples, I think there was a flavour last time for how we add value and how we interact with our transport partners. Just a couple of highlights. On Tuesday, the 28th of Feb, we did have an M6 junction 10 closure due to a HGV incident where it went through the central reservation. A couple of things we did on that: coordination with Black Country UTC and National Highways. Through that coordination, Black Country UTC actually changed signalling plans around the approaches to M6 Junction 10, which was seen on the SRA itself, 2-hour delays on the approach. So obviously, anything that the local authorities can do to support that is greatly appreciated, and was on that occasion. Another example: Birmingham A38, Bristol Road. There was a subsidence reported. We escalated this to National Highways, and they actually managed to get VMS support out on their network for anybody approaching Birmingham to avoid the area, to decrease those delays, which were over 30 minutes during that incident. And then just one last one, like I said, there is a lot more, but escalation and liaison with Metro and UTC regarding the ongoing, well, they're not going now with the Bilston Road issues that were being seen, with some issues with loops in the road, but thankfully we've not seen a reoccurrence of that. Looking ahead slightly, skip through these, took some of those out. Obviously, as I'm guessing you're all aware, we have rail strikes on the 16th, 18th, 30th of March. We're all gearing up to, on top of National Express industrial action from the 16th of this month. So that's where our focus is going to be for the next couple of weeks. And there is also ongoing SRM works. A lot of these are overnight or at the weekend, and quite a number of events in terms of football as the season looks to come to its conclusion, and there is some Resorts World events as well. Talking about the stats I looked at earlier, that has been helped by the post-Christmas lull in events, which we see every year. As we enter spring, those events are going to start ramping up again, so we may get a few performance issues around those events. And that's pretty much all I want to touch on. Just to say, we are, like I say, it's only second meeting we've attended, so we're still learning what you want delivered in this space when we attend. So please do let us know if there's anything you want to see or don't see that we are currently delivering. I'm happy to take questions. The RTCC is upstairs as well, so if anybody does want to see it at any point, I'm more than happy to show you around. And maybe in the future, one of these meetings, we can show you some of the systems we use, so you can sort of see where we're getting our data from. But unless there's any questions, that's all I really wanted to cover today.
I'd just like to say, I imagine that members would want to have a copy of that presentation, really, because we can't actually read it. I think we agreed.
Yeah, I was going to say the same.
Oh,
Okay. I will email that now.
Thanks.
And get it sent out to you guys.
Members, any questions or observations? Councillor Hunnett.
Thank you for saying that you would share where you get your data from. I mean, it reads almost like a traffic flow, you know, yes and no for traffic flow. I know that we've got problems with our buses, and what I would really love to see is the improvement in our bus service being reflected somewhere, or some way of tracking how things are going. And I wondered, does this come under your brief at all?
So we have, we work alongside our partners within the RTCC. So the National Express, for example, are a permanent fixture within the RTCC. Those are the guys that they can view the sort of compliance data, which is obviously the live performance data. We get the information that they give to us. So we rate them based on what they're telling us and what we can see on the network. So our RAG rating data isn't in a direct correlation to compliance data as such, but it sort of mirrors it. So once it hits, once they're satisfied, but once they feel it's reached a certain level, the performance dip from green to an amber, say, they will then relay that to us, which then dictates our RAG rating, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I've got Pete and
Thank you. It does, but what it means is that you're not reflecting the passenger experience in your data with respect to buses specifically. And I just wondered, where is that recorded, and where is change and improvement recorded then?
Yeah, just
I've got Pete, and also John on the points you have raised.
So I was just going to say, Councillor, I think the point you raise are absolutely spot on with regards to what we have at the moment within the RTCC has been an arrangement that's developed over from the RTCC coming live to how we've now started to get particularly National Express involved in there. I think the work that you're talking about probably links as much to what we've now got in our bus service improvement plan process, whereby we've got some funding in from government, and our next iteration will be to start to see how we actually get performance data across the network that's a measurement of what's happening, and then we can report back on that over sort of periods of time to say what buses are operating, how things are improving, how things are deteriorating. At the moment, what we are managing is sort of snapshots through the day-to-day situation room, which gives us a kind of reflection about overall performance. But I think the data metrics that you're looking for, say on these corridors, it's getting better, it's getting worse. What are the things we're doing? How do we manage that? Or all of the work that now is coming into the bus performance work that we just received our first, if you like, proposal from government through the BSIP to start working forward on. So I think what you're asking for, we're not there yet. We have it and we do capture it and we do some analysis through John's team. So on different routes on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, we don't necessarily have that complete network-wide perspective on a route-by-route basis that we can drill into and provide those kind of answers that you were talking about. But we are going for that. That is our next step.
I think you've covered what John might have said. Yeah. Okay, anything further? No? Okay, Councillor Alden.
Thank you. Just to pick up your point, Richard, I completely can't really read what's on the slide, so I appreciate the offer to send them out. But we'd just ask actually be useful in future meetings to get them sent in advance so we can properly have read it to be able to actually question or ask questions on the content of it. Thank you.
Yes. Here. Anything further? So I think we note that and thank you very much.
I will go and get this sense of property. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Yeah, thanks. So, member engagement groups. Update. Can I invite the respective chairs if they're present for me, if they want to say anything about their particular make briefly. Yeah.
Mention putting passengers first, meeting and self and I'm very concerned about funding, because we get it for 3 months and then we go over to the cliff edge and then we've got it for another 3 months, and then April we can breathe a little bit, and then April the 1st we have to start, you know, holding our breath and praying that we get it again for July onwards. It's not really a way of running buses for passengers. We want people to use buses. We had a display of the RTI, didn't we, John, as well, an update on that. Just finding out where it is. I've deleted my minutes. There we are. Where am I now? I'm looking for it. And there's something called the later about the passenger champions, but that will be brought up a bit later in the meeting, will it?
I'm sorry, Councillor.
Passenger champions.
No, that was a decision that was taken at the MEG group for amendments to merging the passenger champions with the bus satisfaction steering group, to say that those proposals were supported at the.
I can talk about the air quality congestion and environmental impact thing, which took place on the 1st of March. And one of the things that was discussed was the use of 20 plenty zones outside schools. In Wolverhampton, we have 6 20 plenty zones that we are trialling as we're a data-driven authority. And we were told how in across the West Midlands, I think there's something like 23 schools which have 20 plenty zones in front of them, and another 16 are planned as a result of the perceived success of those zones. I asked Jake if we could share Transport for West Midlands data, because for Wolverhampton, the data pool is not big enough, really. You know, your sample size isn't big enough to come to correct conclusions. Whereas if we had access to Transport for West Midlands data as well, your sample size is much bigger and your likelihood of coming to a correct conclusion is therefore much greater too. We also went on to discuss the fact that when you slow down traffic using humps, it produces increased particulates, which are like going to be the next big thing when you're going to talk about air pollution. And the advantage of an extended 20s plenty zone is that you don't get people putting the brakes on quite so sharply. You don't get the number of particulates being quite so great. And that led to a really interesting discussion about areas that we personally had seen where 20s plenty zones were in force across the West Midlands, and where some were perceived to be working very well and others perhaps not quite as well, and to think about the reasons why that might be. Talked about the 5-year climate improvement plan, and let's see. I think I finished there really, because I wasn't expecting to give this presentation, and that's my notes really are more relevant to Wolverhampton than they are to general discussion here. I do apologise.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gritzel, do you want to say anything about your member engagement
Thank you,
group?
Chair. It's a fairly full report we've got that I won't bore you with, so I'm sure you can look at it and see that there has actually been a reduction in antisocial behaviour. However, one thing that isn't noted in that I have asked to be raised in future it is because I consider graffiti as antisocial behaviour, and if we can make our transport systems more appealing, so we're looking at ways of how we can minimise that, and the same applies to not these very large, nice nitrous oxide. Thank you. Containers that are being left near bus stops, railway stations, etc. So I've asked the Safer Travel Partnership to look at those two other issues. I think it's probably, and subsequently, I believe that I now will be taking on board within that MEG in respect of the scooter trial. But other than the press release that's gone out, I have no further information on them at the moment.
Thank you. Is there anything further? There's something I would like to raise, possibly for future reference. We don't know what's going to happen with member engagement groups because of the governance review. What actually concerns me is that actually it would be helpful for member engagement groups to, by and large, meet maybe 2 or 3 on the same day, so that they can conclude their business. So, for example, with Sprint and Rail and Metro, Councillor Huxtable and I have tried to get them to be on the same day. And that does make sense for people, if it can be done. The other thing I'm really quite concerned about is the level of and the quality of reporting. You just have to look at this to know that some of it's okay and some of it's hardly worth looking at and some of it is absent. So I just think that going forward, if we do have MEGs, there needs to be a framework that assures a general level of quality of reporting and uniformity, and also a timetable that suits elected members as best it can. I just worry. I did ask the question about, well, why don't we just get the minutes? And Dan will explain that actually the way MEGs work is that they are essentially private discussions, so that you obviously members can request those. If you've got a particular interest in, say, air quality, then you ask for that and you can get it on that sort of confidential basis. So what we end up with is this report that might not tell you everything you might want to know. I just think there needs to be a proper framework and a proper timetable. Those are just my views and my experience. But then again, we don't know what's going to happen to MEGs. Councillor Locke.
Just like to bring up, is this any other business? Yeah.
We're still on MEGs unless
Oh,
anybody.
sorry, I think mine's under any other business. I do
We've got
apologise.
the Combined Authority reports as well. Who's dealing with those officer-wise? Anyone?
Just to use the chair. So you get there if you've concluded business around member engagement program. Yes.
Do you want me to give an update on the rail, Meg?
Well, okay.
Done it?
No, I haven't done it, Councillor Locke.
Sorry.
It might feel like that because I've spoken about various elements of the MEG, because I've talked about High Speed 2 and the rail field trip. I've talked about the new station study, both of which were substantive items of the last rail and metro MEG. The one issue I haven't talked about, which is crucial, is the Midlands Rail Hub, which we did discuss at the last meeting in great detail. And this is the strategic vision for the West Midlands, well, indeed, for the entire Midlands, the crucial bit being in Birmingham, in order to get those east-west links going from Hereford and Worcester all the way through, and indeed Bristol, all the way through to the East Midlands and the East Coast. And none of that can actually happen without the Midlands Rail Hub and the infrastructure in and around Birmingham, being the Camp Hill Cords, and building that viaduct, whether it's improvements to Snow Hill Station Platform 4, whether it's the upgrade of Moore Street and the new platforms of Moore Street, whether it's the complete reconfiguration of Kings Norton Railway Station, and then various signalling and track improvements in terms of those to work with that infrastructure and to make those east-west connections viable going forward in the future. And that was one of the substantive items on the MEG. I know that Midlands Connect have talked about it. I know there was a session of the conference about the Midlands Rail Hub specifically, and I know there was a photo shoot involving the elected mayor along with other local politicians at Moore Street Station, because I saw the photographs. So it's a very, very crucial bit, and obviously the Rail and Metro MIG will be keeping a very close eye on its progress. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like your good self, I'd like to thank you for what you've done for us over the last 12 months in the chair. I'd also like to thank Councillor Huxtable and Councillor Locke. I serve on both of their committees. I found it very helpful, very constructive. and we've had some very good meetings. And with the rail one, as you know, we had a trip out on one of the lines, the Bradford line, I believe it was.
Shakespeare line.
Shakespeare line, something like that, very close. And I found it very constructive, and so was the pulling passengers first as well. But I found these maps to be extremely useful.
Thank you. Okay, I think we are on to Combined Authority Board reports, which we received on Friday.
So, Chair, just want to, by virtue of this conversation, check in with Dan as well. These reports that have been received, are they going to be discussed as public items or private items?
So the item on the Metro Line 1 is public report. The capital pressures report itself is public, but the appendices are private. So what I would ask members that if you are to ask specific questions about the contents of the appendices, refrain from doing so in the executive, the public part of the meeting. As you know, we are streaming live, so the appendices of the capital pressures report is private.
So with that in mind, just note that there are two reports going to the Combined Authority on Friday. One we've already discussed as a matter of the item. The other one is around the Transport for West Midlands capital pressures, which was first introduced to the committee. I know Anne Shaw gave an overview to the previous Transport Delivery Committee. The paper has been circulated, setting out recommendations for the board, including some delegations to the Combined Authority Section 151 officer, to ensure that there is the ability to amend budgets and reflect how the CR STS budgets are being managed. Apologies if members haven't had an opportunity to see or read the report. I'm happy to pick up any questions subject to the points that Dan's just made, not all of which will necessarily have the answers to, but if I haven't, be able to reflect them back. But furthermore as well, if there's anything in this and members haven't had the time to review it, then more than happy that we take and reflect any questions beyond the meeting today, and extend an invitation to please feed those back either via myself and we will ensure that we get back to you on those. That's helpful. Thank you.
So, I guess just to confirm through you, Dan, we don't get them very promptly because they only get published in time for the Combined Authority. I think that's the problem we've had.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, Chair. So you're meeting on the Monday, the Combined Authority Board is meeting on Friday. So those transport reports that go out with the CA Board agenda went out very late on Thursday, and so they were then provided to you on Friday. But recognising short turnaround for yourselves and members on this committee, but they're literally not produced any earlier. That's the reason.
Councillor Stanley, before you come in, I just want to follow that one up. There's a timetabling problem here, because not only do we get those reports late because our meetings take place shortly before the Combined Authority meetings, but what happens at the Combined Authority is that the minutes of the meeting we have had don't go to the next Combined Authority meeting, they go to the one after.
Yeah.
And that's because there isn't sufficient gap between TDC and the Combined Authority meetings. Now, as there's a governance review, and if the TDC survives, then I think there's a timetabling issue to be resolved. Because when was I at the TDC meeting? And we just had our meeting, it must have been the last one, and then there was a report from, well, like 2 months before. And then, of course, it comes way down the agenda, so they don't really discuss anything because the committee want to finish in good time. So we don't really get a very clever deal. If we're going to have a meaningful input to make, we need to have the time to do it, both in terms of timetabling our respective meetings and also a little bit more time than we actually get when it gets to the Combined Authority, because we're way down the agenda and the Mayor, bless him, I love him, says, well, actually, come on, you lot, we want to finish by 12:30, so any questions? No? Okay, thank you. Next business. And that's not doing the TDC justice. It really is not. And that's not the personal criticism, it's just the way it is. Councillor Huxtable, I will.
Okay,
Councillor
you
Huxtable,
can do it.
okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
As I've got to go to that, so thank you for doing this. I accept all that you say about the timetabling and would fully endorse your suggestions. The one thing I would say is that the way it is on the Monday, we can make our comments as TDC and then rely on officers who are present at here to reflect those views verbally to the meeting of the Combined Authority as we have done previously. So that if there are aspects of those reports that we are particularly concerned or unhappy about or believe we could add value to, we would hope that those comments are verbally represented to the Combined Authority who meet 4 days later. And that is one advantage of the current timetable, because if we meet earlier, in order to get our minutes to them, we won't actually have seen those reports. So we can't comment on reports we haven't actually seen. But as you say, by seeing those reports, then there's a very narrow time gap in getting our comments in any meaningful context over to the Combined Authority. Thank you, Chair.
Just and noting those, I think that there is a challenge associated with those that goes back to your concerns, Chair, which is that whilst, so for example, on reports that I think the Combined Authority Board, I don't introduce those. They are down to the respective lead, which in our case is Councillor Ward, and so that is requiring us to ensure that there is a verbal communication or written communication through to Councillor Ward to make those representations through his report. So it does still require a further dialogue beyond those. So I think the points are wholly noted around the timetabling and to do this review. So any opportunities to improve tips to realign those and reflect the comments of this committee.
I'm going to say, Councillor Stanley has been waiting patiently, and then Councillor Hyatt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I printed up both the reports. Over the weekend, I've had a good chance to go through them and read them. There's a lot of sensitive information in here, which I wouldn't like to discuss at this point, but I did raise certain issues that did concern me from this report earlier on within the meeting. Whether I got the right answer or not is a different matter, but at least I made an attempt. And yes, I agree with what Councillor Huxtable said, and your good self, of course, you know what I mean. It's always that little bit difficult when you get two meetings coming close together, whether you see it before or after, and when you get reported next. It's always a difficult one, and I'm sure there is an answer somewhere along the line, but that's all I really needed to say. I have gone through them, but I was very careful of anything I would raise in here until this meeting that took place on Friday.
Councillor Hyatt.
And can I say it is not an advantage to be dependent on officers to report back the words of this committee. It is a disadvantage to be dependent on the words of an officer rather than a minuted record of what has been discussed and said. Now, I've raised this before, that we are not being given the information quick enough in order if the points that we have to make are of value. I didn't get this till late on Friday afternoon. It may have been produced on a Thursday, but it popped into my email late on Friday afternoon, very late on Friday afternoon. And I really think that if we are to comment and our words are to be of value and valued, it would be great if they could appear in our email box over the weekend, because that was what I was left with.
Any other business? Councillor.
Just like to say, I attended with other councillors, the renaming of the tram, for Teresa Stewart. That was last week, very nice. Also, I observed out of the 4 trams, only one is named after a woman. So we were on International Women's Day, so possibly a thought in the future to think about on the West Midlands.
Thank you. Anything for, oh, Pete, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Just a final point from me, if I may, just to reiterate as well. Thanks of Transport for West Midlands and to both yourself and any other members who have been part of this committee and that don't either intend or don't return to it. I think just in terms of our gratitude, I've been part of this committee now for several years, and this regardless of political persuasion, the level of work and effort that goes in for some of the members that we see across this committee. So I hope we can just put on our thanks and gratitude as well. Only other point that just raised is having, we discussed the forward plan earlier in the meeting, but there is a huge volume of proposed documentation to come forward to the July meeting, given that there is a big gap between now and July. So with regards to engaging with members, it'd be useful to engage firstly on the time available for the first meeting to see that it can accommodate such a large agenda. And secondly, if we need to have any discussion around new members ahead of that time, so that we can ensure that they are engaged and up to date on some of the work of the committee as well. We're happy to do so with relevant contacts on. Thank you.
If, well, the lady new members, is there any way they could do an induction before, so that, you know, they're not sort of dumped in the water and, you know, swimming around, because there's a lot to take on board as well. There's a lot to learn, you know,
Area.
is educated.
Absolutely. Yes, that would be the intention. So more than happy to do that.
Thank you, everybody. See you on April 21st. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to say, long session. Mind you, we've got our share. Yes. I just haven't met any keen and interested in knowledge.
You never know, you might have a few more questions.
It's been a bus trip, it's never been built.
Take care of you, but they're never going to.
You know, 5-year plan.
They fund.
And then we had 2 slide decks and actually a detailed report. And I got permission to share all of that, which is
One of my concerns, one of the concerns.
I want to share it with the councillors and I want to share it with the public, so they're really interested in transport. And when Richard Wyatt rang, we were told now you're by the comms person that there's going to be consultation attached to it.
Right.
So as a result, you have to do anything with it.
Well, actually, I'm London, that's.
I'm thinking this thing, Richard Wyatt is what to now. So that needs unpacking. Share Richard Wyatt with you.
And then I'll make sure that when I
One of those coming up.
And also, is developing a relationship with the Commons team so that he will.
Yeah, anytime you get in touch. Yeah.
Well,
You've got them on
it needs
the.
to be-
That's what I
So that's a very, I do as well. That's a very good, that's a very good. And it is, you know, yeah.